Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture. And my episode is sponsored by my very own class, which is Comic Book Investing 101 on OnlyFans. I really need the money. OnlyFans, we all know what it is, but you can go get my class there. It's $5 a month, and you can learn how to invest in comics, and therefore you can actually make money and then spend that money on Kickstarter. And I'm speaking to two very interesting individuals who right now have a Kickstarter going on called Belial. I'm sure I can't speak today, and I'm with Chuck Pineau, who's already been on this show once, and Shaun Barbour. I think I got that as close to it as I can get it. So welcome to the show,
Almost.
guys.
Hey, how's it going, man?
What's up,
You
big
did
guy? Good to
you
see
did all
you.
right.
There's a lot to talk about, and Chuck knows how this goes, and it's very informal for everybody who's watching this. And I think the best place to start is, what is your Kickstarter that's currently going on? I think you got 27 days, 26 days left. And what is the basic story of Bilal and what is going on for those who don't know what that's about?
Chuck, you're the big writer, man. Come on, dude.
Oh, okay, all right.
You know it.
Okay, so Belial is all about the original creator of Hell, Belial, as he tries to take his powers back from the original Four Horsemen and Lucifer, who usurped them when they came down and took over Hell. So now, millennia later, all he owns is this crappy bar that's the only segment of the hell which he created that is his. And so he's decided, screw this. I'm taking it back. I'm taking back what's mine, one guy at a time.
And this is issue two, so I'm just going to catch everybody a little bit up to speed here. In issue one, Bilal is in his crappy bar. He's sort of pissed off a little bit, and then he says, I'm taking it back. And he has this power that he embraces, and then he fights war. And he kind of kicks war's ass, which is a little bit of an oxymoron in many ways. You would tend to think that war would be more of a badass character. So,
Well, actually, he doesn't fight war at all, technically. Really, he outwits war. And so war gets his butt kicked by his own sort of inadequacy and the fact that Belial was just outthinking him.
Yeah, we're gonna go with the fact that his ego got the best of him on that one, and yeah, his we went with the he doesn't necessarily fight his own fights. War didn't on that one, I guess you could say. He was prepared for it, but more or less his power that he took from Belial was the power to um, basically influence others. So, like, you know, that what is that, Braveheart, where he's running in front of all those people, just inspiring them to be able to fight those wars. So we went with kind of that aspect, and he was really influencing, getting people riled up. So it was kind of cool to spin that on its heels, so to speak.
and so now, and the reason why I bring all this up is because we have this character who's pissed off, who likes to drink. Obviously, he wants what is his, and he's the creator of hell. And from this point, he is not appropriate in any format. He tells like dick jokes and fart jokes and other jokes and all sorts of stuff. And any 16 to 26-year-old is going to love this comic, that type of humor. And so, where do we go from here now? Because we have three horsemen to deal with. We have Lucifer himself, and obviously, there's a preview on the Kickstarter, and they're in a bar, and they're sort of partying a little bit. And where does the story go from here without giving too much away?
Well, without giving away too much, I guess we can go with what exists in the 5-page preview that we have on Kickstarter. And so we pick up as they're coming back from that battle with war. And so as they come back, they're waiting for them inside the bar, or the next two horsemen, Pestilence and Famine. And they're just waiting there. Nobody else is actually there. And so we kind of come across this little bit of a dilemma, like, wait, what are you guys doing here? You know, where did you come from? What's going on? And then ultimately, like, where's Mammon in that picture? Mammon is the bartender and kind of like the advisor to Belial. So we go through that in the very beginning. So fresh off the battle, excited. Everybody's piling in behind him into the bar to celebrate, and instantly you kind of get caught up right into the next confrontation. And in a direct opposite of how we introduced characters in the first issue, we feel like Chuck did a really good job of actually getting people connected with those characters, and often people, they have their favorites already, and so we felt it was actually a comfortable spot to actually go ahead and just slam right into the introduction of the next characters, those fresh faces, to be able to carry the story along. So a lot of fun.
And to even jump off of that, obviously conquest slash persistence, I think it is the first horseman, and then the second one is famine. They're not traditional Four Horsemen. And so the Four Horsemen have been done in a variety of ways. East versus West has done, or I think East West has done a great job. I think is the comic, and then several others, and then we go through the entire Bible and that entire element of it, and then every other iteration of them has come across.
Supernatural, yeah.
So how did you guys go and build your Four Horsemen? Because you're both co-creators of this, and this is sort of your baby in many ways. And how did you go about making it different? Because this entire comic is different.
In the original concept, it was a lot darker and stuff. So I went with when I pitched the idea to Chuck, had the basics of war, famine, pestilence, and death. Those are the four classically painted, like in artwork and everything else. So it's easier to find some reference in those characteristics and the representations, what we wanted to kind of incorporate into the design elements of the characters and whatnot. And since I myself am not the penciler of the book, but a lot of the initial concept design and stuff I'd come up with for a lot of the characters. And so I had already, years before that, had a comic book that I was making with my friend Mark Zuptich called Into the Darkness. And originally that concept had to deal with the Four Horsemen as well. Ultimately, that idea got pitched, and one of the concept designs that I had come up with for that storyline actually still existed for the famine character. And so I wanted to kind of bring that character over, since I fell in love with that character design and really didn't want to see it not be utilized. And so having that character kind of concept already there, it allowed it to make, for myself during that initial pitch, to be able to come across more clearly for Chuck's more light or twisted version of the story, so to speak, you know?
You could say light and twisted. Yeah, I'll take that.
Intoxicated version. How's that?
Right.
So you just brought up a really interesting point, Shaun. So you're not the penciler. So Chuck is the writer, you're the inker, yet
Correct.
you're both the co-creators. So how does that dynamic work? 'Cause that's what I'm really curious about, and that's what I think a lot of people are curious about, is that you're inking and you're making it bold out, and you're sort of handling, I guess, some parts of the shading and all those intricacies, but you're also, somebody else is laying down all the interior work. And so how does that go in the creation process, where issues are going, and then how you view those pages when they come out, and then you feel any modifications, because you're an artist as well, but you're doing the inks on this, and then somebody else is doing the colors, and there's a whole team surrounding this book.
Let's do it this way. Chuck, I'm gonna actually turn to you, since the process actually starts. I know I just talked about pitching the concept. The next step would be what Chuck has done, and we'll go from there. Maybe Chuck will talk about his portion of it. Then, as we get led through the steps, maybe we can kind of end at where we are at the end of that artistic process.
Because I'm curious very much about from the original concept, because the two of you are the co-creators, and then everybody has duties in this book, and delegation, I think, is a really good word.
So he pitches me the idea, and I remember we were talking on the phone late that night. We're chatting back and forth, and he pitches me this idea, and I'm like, damn, actually, that's really cool. I wasn't ready to want to try something else, but I actually really like this idea a lot. And so I didn't immediately pitch him the comedic aspect. That did come up later as I was writing the script. But what I then did was, whenever I see a story, I want to see, especially a story like this, it had to have a beginning and a middle and an end. It wasn't going to be an ongoing. I was pitching it as a mini series of sorts, and so I pitched it, and to me, it was like 4 or 5 issues. And this is kind of how it all happened. I dropped out the main bullet points, the characters that I saw, and sort of the way that I saw everything going down. And he was really impressed and really seemed to enjoy it a lot. And so we went off of that. We started working. I immediately went on to working on script, and I started scripting it. And that's when I went, yeah, actually, I really love the idea of playing with a comedic aspect. And one of the things that I realized is that we both realized we wanted to add as much of the uh, when he brought it up, he brought up like the Aramaic texts and Dante's Inferno, and there was all this stuff that he talked about, and I was like, ooh, yeah. And so he was bringing me all this stuff, and I was infusing it everywhere, and I realized I wanted, and I added, I brought in Manon, who is one of the big demons, and then I thought about it, and I was like, I want him to have like a sidekick. Like, I feel like there should be this other, and at first I was like, he'll have this like little bitch demon beside him or whatever. And so I started looking up for quasi demons and all that kind of stuff, and I ended up finding imps. And I found this great story about the Lincoln Imps. It's a tale from medieval England. If you go to Lincoln, England right now, you will find this cathedral that has been around since like the 1400s or even longer than that.
If you search it, it's actually the Lincoln Cathedral.
Yes, it's the Lincoln Cathedral, and it's been around since forever. And they have this story, and the story is that imps burst up, and they came out from hell, and they started terrorizing the countryside, and they're wrecking everything up. And they went to the cathedral, and they were shattering the glass and doing all sorts of terrible stuff. And an angel of the Lord sprung up from the Holy Bible on the pulpit, and he began turning them into stone. And one of the imps grabbed a rock and threw it dead at the angel. And the angel then basically says, I shall turn ye into stone, and then turns him into stone. And I was like, no. You missed the best part. This stupid little imp wasn't afraid at all. He's like, fuck you, guardian angel. I'm coming for you. And threw a rock at him. A rock at an angel with a flaming sword. And I was like, that is a level of I don't give a shit. That is just amazing. And so that's why his name is Link, because it's named after the Lincoln Cathedral. And so now we have this little imp Link who is afraid of nothing when he should be afraid of everything, because he has no right to be as ballsy as he is. And literally in the first book, by page 3, he walks into this bar. There's all these demons who every single one of them could kick his ass. And he walks in and he's like, what's up, my demons? Like, right away, he's got the swagger, like he's the man. He's constantly making fun of everybody. And so as soon as I had that character, I was like, oh crap, this is going to be a comedy. And so I then pitched it, and I told Shaun what was up, and he's like, all right, let's try it. And I was like, dude, every time you get a horror story or a hell story, they're all the same. They're ultra evil and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, this is like friggin' Adult Swim's version of a hell story. And he's like, yeah, okay. And we did it that way, and we're super proud of it. We got it all done. I got the script done. We went over it a couple times. And the great thing about working with Shaun is that, yes, I get to make those main, like, I really get to flesh everything out and play in there. But the whole time, Shaun is like, hey, what about this? What about that? And he comes in and he kind of goes over and edits. And he's like, he's giving suggestions, and he gets to play as well. So he's very much the co-creator in that regard. And even he worked so hard on this script for issue 2 that we're giving him a co-editor credit because he earned it. he was like, we decided, you know what? He worked so hard and just did so much extra. Let's make that happen. I felt like he earned it, and I said, I want you to have that. You should have an editing credit. And he's like, oh, dude, you don't have to do that. I'm like, no, you earned it. So then we move on to art, and that's you.
So before we move on to art, and I'm
Oh yeah,
curious for both of you, because one of the things that I'm learning in my business, which is not comics, and it's more in the mainstream and selling comics, and even doing other stuff and marketing and social media, is never to be married to one idea. And it seems that this is one of those things. And I know, Chuck, you work on countless comics every year. I think this year alone, you're up to 12 or 14 almost, I think, or you're going to be by December, I think. And
I haven't
so
counted, but yeah, it's up there.
what is that I like for both of you, that you're not married to one idea, and then this better idea and this great idea and this reinterpretation of what hell could look like that's different than every other hell book that is out there, because I think that's something that people struggle with across the board, let alone in comics, and we see that a lot in the mainstream right now.
I want to say that for me, I don't know if I can speak for Chuck, but for me, working on a lot of different projects, even within different realms of themes of comics, um, I think it actually helps in the development of our story. So, in my opinion, I know Chuck and I have both gone back and forth in saying that we've both leveled up our skill set over the past year. And one of those things is, as an artist, inking different styles, different themes, taking different approaches because of the way that the book or the pencils read or whatever. But also one of those things is you get to read those scripts, you get to read those stories, you get to talk to those creators, you get to basically cultivate information. You get to, in a healthy way, in a positive way, steal those good practices, those good ideas, those things to make your own self better. And so I think that both Chuck and I can safely say that we've taken those things, and in Chuck in editing and reviewing and things like that, we've been able to say, okay, well, this works, this doesn't work. These are successful campaigns, these are unsuccessful campaigns. What elements do we both agree on that exist? And how can we incorporate that into our own property to make our stuff even that much stronger? I mean, because you can't tell me that you see Chuck's face everywhere and he's reviewing books and he's the face of a bunch of different things. If he comes out with a shit book, nobody's gonna be trusting that. He's already put out quality work, and to turn around and have his writer credential on a book versus an editor, he's got a lot to answer for. And he's got to bring the pain, so to speak, when it comes to that. So he's got to bleed, he's got to cry, he's got to put that portion of himself in there, as do I with the artwork aspect of it.
Yeah, no, you're dead on, dude. You're dead on. And it's such an arduous journey now to write, because you know that the guys that you work for are about to read your stuff, and if it sucks, I mean, if I had an editor and I was like, your writing is terrible, why would I let you inform me of what I should do with my story? You don't even know what to do with yours, you know? And so like it it terrified me. And actually I had paralysis making this book. We went over that script and we destroyed it and we built it and ripped it apart and we created new outlines and ripped them apart. It was arduous. I was the biggest pain in the ass to him this time around, and that's why he deserves the editor credit, because he came in and he went, okay, what if we do this? And that helped to take us down that road. And he and I actually built this story much more. I would say my fingerprints are much more on the first one, but on the second one, it's a lot more of a 50-50 of us really, like literally, this was an arduous sitting over like a 3-hour period of us just talking and going over each one of the main points that happened in this story.
Yeah, we neither one of us will actually pretend it didn't happen. We've actually been in a couple of heated discussions over like the process and where we're at and things like that. I can be a little impatient sometimes. So I was kind of chomping at the bit, and Chuck finally had come to me and said, "Hey, dude, I'm really having a hard time." And I know that takes a lot for Chuck to say that. It takes a lot for anybody to own up and say, "Hey, I'm really trying really hard, but I can't get this to stick yet. Like, what can we do?" And so that was one of the things. I said, "Well, give me a minute, give me a little bit. I'll come back at you with something. Let's see if any of that works, and we'll see if it sparks any of that." And coming in with the first book, having the bones of the initial story there, I thought maybe if I take an approach, I'm not the writer, but I can write and I have written. So putting together kind of a prelim story, I had pretty much the entirety of the issue there in one form, and said, "Hey, Chuck, read this over. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. Or if you don't like anything, maybe tell me what you do like," because that's feeding into his wheels turning. Giving him anything to work with, he can find out. It's like when you're asked, "Where do you want to eat?" Sometimes you can't decide where you want to eat. Well, where don't
there's
you
too
want to
many
eat? Work
choices.
backwards.
Well,
I
and
know
this
the
is
feeling.
another thing, Shaun, and I don't know if you remember this or not. We got Belial and we read it together and we were so proud of it. I love that first book. I'm so proud of it. I think we did a really good job. We sent it out into the world. We were so proud. We made the Kickstarter happen. Everything was good. We sent it out and fucking crickets. No one reviewed it. No one talked about it.
Yeah,
Nothing. There was a couple. Yeah, there was like a couple, and there was a lot of reviewers who were like, "Yeah, we got it," and then it just never happened. And as a reviewer who has probably scorned dozens and dozens of people by losing their stuff or forgetting it, or it going away in my email and just me moving on and whatnot, I understand. So I'm not mad at them at all. But it was just like, how is nobody talking about it? Like, no one is talking about this? And then you completely get, and for me, I got inside my own head. I got super depressed. And I was just like, if I think this is amazing and no one else is willing to talk about it, do I even know what I'm doing? And I got like really like uber depressed. It was rough, dude. Rough.
So on that, now I'm curious about it because obviously I came across the first issue when it came out and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I'm out of the review game on that stuff just because I got 30,000 things going on in my personal life. Otherwise,
Sure.
I would have been reviewing it, and I used to review a lot of stuff. I haven't written anything in like 8 months, and that's 500 words. Like I think the most I've written in the last eight
Wow.
months is like 600 words, and I know the feeling about writing. It took me 4 hours to write 3 sentences 4 nights ago on something. So I know the feeling. I know the feeling about having writer's problems. But what was that like? Because I think I think a lot of people get that. It's the same thing when I do an interview and nobody's looking at it and I say, do I know what the fuck I'm doing here? Even though I've done over 150 of these. And so, like, how do you get out of your funk? And how do you get out of that situation? Because that's like a mind fuck. Because I know if mind fucks with me, when I'm doing a top person, it gets 25 views.
Yeah. Um, we finally got some people talking about it. Like we finally started to get some reviews, and they were like, "Dude, this is really good. I really enjoyed this." And actually, one of the guys that really hit me, and I think he hit both of us, Phil Luckler. When Phil Luckler, he's Demon Phil on Facebook, and he read it, and he had this genuine. And he actually, when he did the live show for our launch the other day, he talked about how when he's having a bad day, he'll grab Belial and he'll read it because he'll know he'll just laugh. And that like hit me in the feels. And so when he first did that interview with me, he talked about it and he said, "Oh, dude," and he started reciting specific jokes and saying, "Oh man, this part was hilarious and that part was hilarious." And I was like, "You're the first guy to really do this." Like, maybe my ego shouldn't have needed that, but it needed it really bad. Like I needed someone to like it so that I could then go, okay, cool. It's something else. Like there's some other reason why it didn't happen. And then people started talking and people were loving it and it kind of moved forward and then we started chugging and then of course that's when I start getting in the muck and I'm having a hard time with the story and that's where everything else we talked through went through.
Well, I have a theory on this, and please feel free to go against my theory. We tend to care about things that we put a lot of effort into, and we tend to take them massively sensitive, and then all of a sudden we think things are beyond good. And I'm the same way with certain interviews. And certain interviews, when somebody says, "Oh, you killed that interview," even if it's only gotten 10 plays, it changes the dynamics so massively. And then other interviews, I'll get like 1,500 plays on it, and I don't give a fuck because it's not like a monumental position where, because at certain points it's not about the money, it's not about the views, it's that we've set a personal goal attached to it, and we need that verification that our personal goal matches up on a professional level. And I think that's something that I experience, and that's not
Yeah.
comic wise, but we're way out of art now. We're way out of art.
Yeah,
but
right. No, but we all need validity. That's a huge deal. That validity is massive. So yeah, absolutely, man. I needed to be validated, and I needed to know that this wasn't a waste of my time. Like, if I suck and this sucks, then why am I continuing to talk about this and do this? Like, and so I just needed to know that I wasn't spinning my wheels, that it wasn't a waste of time, that people were enjoying it, and I feel like the response to the campaign so far, it's been huge. The response to the book now and all that kind of stuff, it's been a big help to both of us. And honestly, this issue, like once we were done spinning our wheels and we started working, like every time I was sending him like 5 pages at a time kind of thing, and it was coming in chunks. And for the most part, he was just like, yes, I love that. Let's change this. And it wasn't like, let's destroy this page. It was like, let's tweak these things. And it was all tweaks all the way along. But every time we would send it, and that's not me saying, oh, I'm amazing and I said these 5 amazing. No, we had such an amazing outline set up for it, and we had worked so hard to set up what this issue needed to look like that we both had a really good vision of what that little segment should look like. So by the time it got to him, he was like, yes, that's what that should look like. Let's move on.
and to segue into this, somebody did the interiors and then you did the ink. So how did that all work from the writing position to the interiors to you, and then obviously that was handed off to a colorist later after the inks were placed down. If I know how comics are made, right? I think that's how they're made, right?
No, you're right.
Yeah, you're right. No, early on when we were writing the book, we didn't really have anybody settled on in the initial stage, and so we were trying to figure it out. And as the book almost basically created itself, we had kind of connected with Gregory, and he actually had been working on a book, Dulce, and other things like that. And so a lot of the things that really snuck up on that, aside from us both being hella broke and Gregory being just hella cool to work with and really worked with us on all aspects of the book, his character designs and stuff really spoke to the theme of the book. We weren't drawing people, we weren't drawing superheroes, we weren't drawing, those things. So having somebody that had a real unique take on character concept and could take what we had kind of come up with in the initial spot and essentially take the bones of the artistic story and flesh that aspect out, that was really important. And Gregory did a really, really good job with that. And it was simple enough in the production of each of the images at that time for me. I'm a single father of four, so I needed to have something that was a little bit more approachable with my time. And so that led to the artistic style that we settled on. And eventually we felt that it fit the grungier look in the overall product, that we really thought, well, hey, this is going to be a book made in hell. And then at the time we were contemplating putting it on, what is that, newsprint. So we wanted to have that gritty feel. And what goes well with that? And how can we save a little money? Chuck's writing it, I'm inking it. We're skipping 2 of those steps that people normally hire out for. What else can we do to kind of, well, let's put out a black and white book.
And now you just ruined the joke. And now the joke is ruined.
What was that?
And now the joke is ruined. The whole point of why I mentioned a colorist.
Sorry about that.
Is that It's Harvey the Rabbit. Like, it's just nobody.
But continue, please.
Well, for us, we're like, well, how can we go about that? And Chuck actually threw the idea at me. Well, why don't you try to play with like the gray tones or something? Do something with that. And I wasn't comfortable, but he's like, dude, just try it out, see what happens.
Which speaks to my lack of knowledge on art, because that was just, I was like, I don't play with gray tones or something. And I was thinking, because I watched like a lot of, at the time I was watching a lot of like Ink Master and shit. So I was like, yeah, do gray tones and stuff, right? Like, you can just spill some white paint in there. I don't fucking know. Like, do art stuff,
right?
Right.
So in the efforts of doing that, having gone over like the line work, that was the easy part. And then, okay, well, what's going to be gritty and what's going to fit the tone of the book? Came up with a couple of initial attempts, but then I came across some of these watercolor brushes, and I was like, well, I wonder how that would translate with a gray tone style book. And so started laying down some of the gray wash with a watercolor type of effect to it, and played around with some of the textures and stuff like that. And in the end, Chuck and I both kind of agreed that this just feels right. And so during each step, coming up with the initial concept, giving it to Chuck felt right for the story and where it had developed itself. From there, we were looking at artists and stuff like that. And Greg felt right. His attitude was there. His passion was there. Those things just kind of fell in line to where he was the type of person that, for myself, it's just really important to say, hey, do your thing, have fun with it, because if you're not having fun with it, if you're not enjoying what you're doing, it's not going to translate in the pages. And so in the end, I ended up having a lot of fun with my portion of the book as well. So we figured that it translated really, really well.
And this is one of the things I like about this entire comic, is that it is black and white, where this book would be fantastic in color. I have no doubt about it. But it's also nice to read a black and white comic. I mean, probably the most famous black and white comic in modern day is The Walking Dead. And it does add a very nice touch to that genre. And Kirkman was talking about that in an interview, and what he was saying is that, well, he only expected 6 runs, and the way he got it into Image was that it was cheaper. And that was the whole reason why, but it lends itself so well, and I think the same thing is true. But then we have those elements of comedy, and the comedy almost is a color in of itself. And you almost forget that the book is in black and white to some degree, and it has that element. So it's very interesting to read that. And I don't know if that was intentional or that was how it was meant to be read or whatnot, but that's how it comes off, where you could definitely feel color off the book, even though it's not colored. If that makes any sense.
I mean, no, but it makes perfect sense. It's hell, so it's mostly red. I don't have to tell you it's red. You know what I mean? You feel a lot of that. And so what's funny is that every time a colorist has grabbed our stuff, they all end up kind of doing sort of the same stuff. And then we're like, oh yeah, by the way, here's the picture. And they're like, oh yeah, I did pretty much that. You know what I mean? So everybody ends up kind of, it's just, you can already feel what the colors are on there because it's hell. And so, yeah, man, I think it would be really fun to color it. And we've certainly talked about the ideas down the road to if we turn into a trade, there's some things that we could play with. So those are considerations. But you already feel that color, so we didn't need to give it to you.
And even going beyond the color of hell, I feel that there is that color of chaos in it. Where I envision hell differently than everybody else. I envision hell as the greatest block party on the planet. And that's what this comic is in many ways. I mean, I'm going down to hell, and all my friends are going to be joining me down there. It's going to be the greatest block party thrown by Rob Gronkowski from, now, I don't know what team he's on with Tom Brady now playing, but that's a different discussion completely. And I'm from DC when I say that. So clearly, we all know where I stand. But...
Right?
That's how I feel about it, is that we get even that, I don't want to say warmth, but we get that like joy, and then people think of certain colors at like a block party, right? And that's what I got off the book. and that it may be color emotion, because color does invoke emotion, and we get that sense. And like in my mind when I was reading it, you imagine colors in this book,
Yeah.
and you
Well,
don't always
people,
get that with.
people do that with the regular written novels and stuff too, and having that ability to translate for yourself, I think, pulls you into the pages a little bit more. And one of the things that both Chuck and I have also kind of commented on is the fact that these black and white books, they lean even more strongly into the writing because you're not distracted by, oh, that's a pretty color there, or that's a pretty picture there. Yes, it's there, but each part actually lends itself equally across the story. Like The Walking Dead, like The Crow, like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. A lot of these other black and white books were they had those really strong writing elements. And so some of my favorite books, there's a book by Daniel Schaefer called Dog Witch that is a black and white book that was one of my inspirations for myself early on. And so taking, pointers from that and using that kind of as a lead artistically was a lot of help. But I think, Chuck's writing, the amount of effort that goes into each one of these pages and actually cutting it down into chunks that actually translate effectively for the reader and lead you through the pages and lead you effectively through the story and connect you with each character individually all makes you want to fall into the story rather than just be led through pages.
Well, and talking about the art, so if you're gonna kiss my ass, I'll kiss yours. Um, what goes around comes around, homie. You did that. I felt like you did that with the inks because a lot of times when you see it black and white, it's overly saturated with a lot of that shadow and all that. Like it's almost overshadowed.
It's over
And
blacked is a good one
yeah,
too.
and you didn't get that in this. It was actually kind of bright, and then you sort of use those gray tones to kind of play with the lights and all that kind of stuff. But it was never overly shadowed. So it didn't feel sinister, and so that's why I think that's why you get that sensation, that feel. Is a lot of that is a combination of the pencils, the inks, the writing, everything together has kind of hopefully worked together to exude those feelings that we all had. So I'm glad that you're commenting on those because it means we've sort of felt it and done the right thing in our minds at least.
And I'll just add further positions. So for those who don't know, I had Jason Metcalf on Monday, and I had Keenan White on Wednesday yesterday, and they're cover artists, and they've been around the block. And I don't know how long you've been doing art, Shaun, but one of the things that both of them said is that earlier on, their stuff was stiff, and they over black stuff, and I think Chuck just hit it. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is that it doesn't feel over blacked. It doesn't feel stiff. It doesn't feel, you know, overworked for lack of a better word. Ink Master, you can overwork a tattoo, and we see,
Sure.
Chris Nunez and Oliver Peck yelling at people for doing that. So, which is a great show. It's a great show, by the way.
Yeah, no, it
If
is.
you ever want to watch something, just chill out and like have a few drinks. Ink Master will get you right into the zone.
Right?
But I digress right there. And I don't know, and I'm probably a bad lawyer. Luckily, I don't have a law degree when I ask this question, but I don't know how long you've been doing art, Sean, but obviously that's a real skill, even for experienced artists to understand how to do that. And this was, I think, one of your first rounds doing that
Yeah.
black and gray style.
No, definitely. When taking the approach, I know early on, Chuck and I was like, well, what are the ideas? What can we do? And when we were initially kicking around the idea for color and stuff, it did come up. Yeah, it'd be really cool. It may not be now, but if it blows up like we hope it does, it might be financially a bonus that we could offer when we put together a trade. So one of the things that I was trying to take the approach with it is that doing all the line work first, I wanted to be able to look at the book and read it like it was being animated. I want to see that the motion translated, the line work translated. You could look at it without shading anything and see that it translated well. After that, then I would go in and try to do the gray tones and stuff like that. But again, I had to go back and think, what about the theme of the book? I have some stuff that's been put out with Caliber Comics called Mississippi Zombie, which is a horror anthology. You look at that book, I have a lot of blacks, but it's a horror book, and I think the way that you approach the way that the artwork is going to reflect how the book is translated. And one of the things is that we wanted that gritty feeling, but it wasn't a horror book. It took place in hell, but it wasn't supposed to feel evil. So taking a much lighter approach, I think, and saying, okay, well, I want down the road, should somebody look at this and be able to say, okay, well, we're going to put it in color. I want them to look at it much like you did and pull those colors forward in their mind and be able to look at it and say that way. And if we threw a lot of black in there, in the end, we'd have just a really dark book with a couple of colors. And so since we're not making Sin City, I think keeping it light like that actually is going to lend us down the road to being more successful should we take that path later on.
Yeah, and it's also very open, and I like also the fact that the book can breathe in many ways. I think also really helps because in horror books and horror films they are tighter, just by design. Because tight spaces make people scary. If you got an axe murder and there's only one door and the room's 4x6, it's a pretty scary thing. Just saying.
I think,
well, that's why we put the flashlight in our face, for all that shadow.
And you got to think, a lot of noir books, those are solid black, straight lines. You get those sharp angles. And then you've got your horror books, which are a lot of loose lines, a lot of jaggedy stuff going on, a lot of things. So there's things that we naturally associate with those images. And so in doing the stuff, like I said, with a little bit of that head nod towards the animation, the head nod towards the potential for being colored. And I think leaving it light like that and not directing the eye too much, but kind of insinuating the scene kind of leads the readers to kind of say, hey, look, we can actually look around. And if you know or have heard Chuck talk about, issue number 1, we have quite a few Easter eggs hidden in those pages that if we blacked it out, they'd be for nothing. There was a lot of research and stuff done to put together issue number 1. And so we had a lot of other kind of hidden things that we wanted to kind of feature. And people aren't going to do that if your Where's Waldo book, every other person's a black block.
Yeah.
And now, I don't want to continue talking about this too far because I do want to talk about the Kickstarter. But I do want to give people a slight tease on what can people expect moving forward in issues 3 and 4, because I think it's going to 3, 4, possibly 5. If 4, right?
Yeah, 4.
So what can people expect going forward before we dive into the Kickstarter side of all of this?
4, death.
Mm-hmm.
Got to deal with death. And actually, if you remember and you read back to issue 1, Belial basically says to Link, all right, go get me an army. And Link's like, okay, cool. And then Link finds him, and Belial is just sitting on top of the gates to hell. And Link looks at him and he goes, hey, man, what you doing? He's like, I'm watching death. And he goes, we're about to take on war. Why do you care about him? And he's like, I got war. I'm not worried about him. It's death that I'm worried about. That's the one. And he's like, well, you better get your stuff together, man, because no, this is what you need to worry about right now. That's just later on. So I was already foreshadowing the fact that war is going to have to, or death is going to have to be dealt with in a very different way. So I'm very excited. And actually at the end, once you've read issue 2, you'll have a much better idea of what's going to happen in 3, because we definitely set up a big battle of sorts that's going to happen, and it's going to be, I'm pretty excited about that. And then let's be honest, man, issue 4, you know what it's all been coming up to, man. However he was able to do it, he's kind of at the end of the road, and he is where he is, whether he has powers or he doesn't, and it's time to take on the big boy, Lucifer.
Yeah.
And then we're going to table that for right now, because there's
Kickstarter. Absolutely. I can't tell you much more.
I just put up the link, so everybody who's watching this, whether they're watching it live or on replay, can go check out the link and they could click on the link. So feel free to do that. This Kickstarter is going on for at least 26 more days as of recording this. So please go check that out. So where can people find the Kickstarter beyond the link? How can they look it up on Kickstarter? Where can they go to find it? Just so everybody has access no matter where they're finding this stuff, for starters.
I mean, you can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Belial Comic. Um, One of the great things about having my dude Shaun here as a partner is that his meme game is off the fucking hook. And so he has actually created, I would say, in the indie comic community, this meme game where people are like, Belial is doing some stuff. Like, we need, and you can see it starting to happen. And I'm like, that's that, and people are like, well, that's because you guys. I'm like, no. That's Shaun. I'm doing other things. I'm on the videos. I'm setting up that stuff. Shaun is Mr. Meme. That's all him. He deserves all of that credit. And he just brings these hilarious, demon, evil, funny, low brow humor memes, and just have a blast with it. And we're showing off our stuff and having a good old time. So even when there's no nothing to Kickstarter or show off or anything, we're still doing these demon memes and having all these fun and showing this stuff off. So there's always some reason for you to go and check it out. So that page is really cool. And of course, you can find us on Kickstarter at Belial Comic, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And now that we got that out of the way, I do want to talk about all the rewards and all that fun stuff. So there's a big sort of debate. It's not. I don't think it's that contentious, but I'm also looking I'm looking from the outside looking in. I think that's how the phrase goes. And there's this issue of digital versus physical copy being on Kickstarter and distributing, and obviously COVID has sort of changed the game. And the reason why I say this is that certain countries you can't ship to right now at all. They will not have any mail coming in. I think Argentina is still on that list, which is insane right now. And so you have a pretty interesting digital game going on, but you got a hell of a lot of digital shit with this Kickstarter. So what digital stuff are you offering, and what is that like? Because it's not just Belial. There's a lot of other stuff that Chuck you've worked on, and you have your hand in every pie right now on Kickstarter. Pretty much.
Yeah. You're lucky it's my hand that's in the pie. There's hey, it's Belial, right? Come on,
Hey! You know what is this? Is a PG fucking show here? We don't go that rate. We're not American Pie here. We're not American Pie, you know. That's in your own. That's in your own time, Chuck. Your own time. You can go do that on your own time.
I mean, my wife works a lot, and sometimes an apple pie works. So, anyways, yeah. So, and you know what's funny is one of my good buddies, and I'm sure you've had him on the show before. Travis Gibb is a big help. And he came through and he helped us and he looked at our tiers and he was like, man, there's a lot of money you're leaving on the table. And I'm like, well, we don't want to do that. What's up? And he was like, it's your digital tiers. We need to make sure that you have some digital tiers because I think we capped out at like $5. And he's like, so if people don't want to spend, like they don't want to get all these great things, then they're just going to go straight to digital and all you're going to get is $5. So I think our highest is like $12. It's the writer's room. And so with that, what you do is you get my Welcome to the Void. You get the Advocator, which was a, it's a anthology that has a short from Welcome to the Void in it, and along with a bunch of shorts from other great ongoing series. And then we also got another Advocator, which had the Link origin story in there. And so we got a lot of those shorts and those digital stuff. So there was a lot of really cool stuff to be able to play in there and show off. So, and I think on Kickstarter, if you're doing just digital or just physical, you're missing out, man. There is parts of both that are so important, and I think it's really important to cater to as much of those audiences as you can. And I will say personally, as a consumer, getting me to buy a variant is not easy. I just want the damn book. I want to enjoy the book. I want to read the story. I'm impressed and I enjoy art, but I'm not going to sit there and fucking jaw over it, or, I'm usually not going to have it on a slab or anything, that kind of stuff. But I recognize that, and we both recognize, sorry, this isn't just me, we recognize that that was something that was really important to collectors. And so you have to be willing to give them what they want. And so we specifically went out and we found guys that we were excited about, and guys that we just thought they're going to bring some really cool stuff and bring different aspects of our books out when they work on it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that in a second, but I am curious about this digital stuff because I
Yeah.
love digital comics. I love comicsology, and there is somewhat of a debate because people don't, and I think a lot of people have left a lot of money on the table, and I think a lot of people have, and I see this debate with 50 different people, and I think most of them, and maybe it's changing, but I think like 30 of them are saying, I get most of my sales from the physical books, and that digital is the lowest priority. And to me, it seems it should be the just opposite, because digital seems the most viable source, much like an audio file is the most viable source. And again, I'm not doing a Kickstarter. It's not my space, so I could be completely wrong. And I'm the first person to say, if somebody has evidence and can prove me wrong, please show me that I'm incorrect on this. But it's also really hard for me to go and spend $20 on a comic or $10 on a comic that I never heard of.
Sure.
And you want me to have faith. It's like, and this was pre-COVID. And during COVID, you got to be fucking kidding me. I'm looking at every dollar now.
Yeah.
So
I would say they both have, if you're really looking at it from a business standpoint, they both have their advantages. So the thing is that with digital, there's a lot more room for profit. I'm not printing anything. I'm not shipping anything. So if I sell it at this, there's a lot more room to make some money on that, which is fantastic. But then if you're going physical, I have a lot more room to charge a lot more. And so that means that, how you're going to get someone to buy a $100 digital package of something is beyond me.
Yeah.
But you can do that very easily with physical tiers. And you've got people who are doing hundreds of dollars, even like for some of these big guys, thousands of dollars in their tiers, because you're getting actual artwork and all that kind of stuff. And so that stuff is huge. So again, it really depends on what you're doing. And so that's why I personally think it's a stupid fucking debate. They're both really important. And if you're not recognizing that and trying to take advantage of both of those, and you're debating one side or the other, then you're already losing out.
and then oh, I'm sorry, were you saying something?
I was gonna say, for me, I had people that did read the book, and it's all about the difference between like an artist and a mathematician. It engages different parts of your brain, I think, and so some people are very tactile. So we had it commented that somebody in one of the other kind of interview podcast things that we did, they commented on the fact that they loved the way that the cover felt like it was raised. And that was just the one thing. That was one of those things that we didn't plan on somebody saying that. I never anticipated that. We didn't really go for it to be, raised or anything. But going back, it made me go back and feel the book. And I was like, oh, hell, hey, what do you know? So, and another thing is you can't necessarily incentivize digital tiers the same way you can with the physical rewards. Physical rewards, initially when people back them, they'll go for, okay, this is what I want to more or less purchase. Okay, they're getting the book. What they're really hoping to get in the end, though, are any kind of the bonus unlocks, stuff like that. There's potential to get more for the same exact amount of money. So that's where, like, one of the things that we did for the first 50 backers that we had was we had Belial themed Link beer coasters that we were given for the first 50 backers. That's an incentive you can't give people that are going to get that digital tier. You can't digitally give somebody a beer coaster. And so off the bat, the people that were interested in jumping on the campaign right away got an extra bonus thing. So their money felt like it was going further. They were getting more for that initial investment that people down the road might just be getting just a regular book for. So I think it's very important to find those incentives that resonate with people, to give them that perception, that feel. They want to always get that prize in the bottom of their cereal box.
Yeah. And that coaster thing, man, we haven't been able to talk yet, Shaun, but I don't know about you. I got several people saying, I think I might have missed out on the coaster. Can you tell me? And I'm like, yeah, okay, sorry, let me check. And I'd have to go. And one of my clients even contacted me. She's like, I slept in and I think I missed the coaster. And I'm like, did you? She's like, yeah, I think I was number 57. And I'm like, oh, you should be fine. She's like, well, you said the first 50 people. And I said, no, first 50 physical people. There's a lot of digital backers. And she was like, oh, really? And I said, I can almost guarantee. And I did end up looking for, because she was a little worried. And I was like, oh, no, you're getting a coaster. And she's like, oh, that's so badass. Dude, there's that collectability aspect that you can't get with digital. Like, when you're getting all the variants, that doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean?
Dude,
so
even the stickers.
Yeah, dude, people are mental for stickers. Holy crap. I don't give a crap about stickers. I have stickers on here because it shows off my stuff and my friends and stuff. But in my daily life, I don't care about stickers. But at
People
shows,
are
Dude,
crazy about
we come
buttons too.
from a generation that grew up in those sticker machines that were the stickers were like 50 cents to $1 tucked in between two pieces of cardboard, and you were begging for that. And you were either going to play another video game or, slide that quarter in for like the next smiley face, devil horned little dude like sticker. So I think that kind of spirit still exists within even our generation, to where they're like, oh, stickers, cool. And so like Chuck was at a show where he had somebody that actually wanted just the stickers. They didn't really care even about the book, but they liked the design of the stickers. So having things that even like that are kind of cool.
I mean,
that's hilarious.
I'll go even further. So I used to go to a lot of cons as a panelist, and I would hand out my business cards. Nobody gives a flying fuck about my business card. People, though, I started now handing out buttons of my logo. You know how many buttons get thrown out? None. People, they're free. I just say, hey, who wants free swag? Who wants free buttons? And immediately the entire room lights up like 10 degrees. And like I just start passing it out, and then you start handing it out to like celebrities. And then like this, sometimes you get interviews with bigger people, and it's crazy. It's like the world's best secret networking technique is to give somebody a button or give somebody a magnet. It changes the game completely, because now somebody says, oh, I'm getting something that doesn't cost that much money, but is free.
Well, and the other aspect of it too is that if you do it right, you add longevity to your name, to your title, to your position. Our buddy Travis Gibb, again, to bring him back up, he does the Broke Down in 4 Dead Bodies. One of the things that actually really resonated with me with his campaign, he had a tier where you could actually get a broke down air freshener. It spoke to the theme of his book. That thing is still sitting in my car, and he's got like 3 issues later, and I'm still, every time I get in the car, I look at it. I have a couple of people that have our stickers on like their cell phone cases. As long as they don't upgrade their phone, they're carrying around that sticker, and somebody's going to ask about it. Those buttons like you're handing out, those become badges that people wear around. Oh, you were at that convention? Yeah, I got all these buttons. I started grabbing all these, and then they show them off. Well, what's this one for? What's that one for? This one looks cool. So people ask those questions. You add longevity to the relevance of your property.
And now to go more into the physical side of things. So obviously you could get the regular book, but I don't want to talk about that because that's not interesting. I want to talk about the variants because I like.
Okay.
And so we got a beer pong variant, and I think that's done by Steph Wilson.
Yeah, it is.
So how did that one come about? And what was the story behind that? Because you got to think 2 more following this.
We do. So the Steph Wilson one, that's kind of my story. That's hilarious. So what happened there was I like Steph. Steph's a really good guy. Didn't immediately think to utilize him, and we were already moving forward and talking about. We already had our other 2 guys working. So he, we were on a show together, and a bunch of the guys were like, "Yeah, we want to see Belial. Like, can we get a copy?" And so I ended up sending out copies to everybody who was on the panel and whatnot. And Steph got his, and he doesn't read a lot of comics, and he was like, I loved that. That was so much fun. And I'm like, oh damn. And he told me today, he said, I don't read comics, and I read yours twice. And I was like, oh shit, that's huge. And so he ends up sending me a sketch, that sketch of them playing beer pong, and I was like, oh fuck. And I sent it to Shaun, and he said, shit, what are we gonna do with that? And I said, I think that has to be a cover. And he's like, can we afford it? And I was like, we'll figure it out, dude. But I think we got to do it. And he's like, yeah, we do. Find out what's up. And so Steph is very accommodating. He is, I mean, honestly, he's both the nastiest and the nicest dude in comics all at once.
Aside from you, but yeah.
Right? Like him and I are constantly fighting for that title. And so just such a good dude, just really good. And so him and his wife, Carrie Ann, she does all of his colors and stuff. And they just made that beautiful, gorgeous piece. And it's funny, it's fun, it's hilarious, it's cute, it's sexy. It's a part of our comic it's a devilish part of the comic. So yeah, we love that.
And then the other one, and I'm saving the best for last, in my opinion, was done by Thomas Tenley, or Tenney.
Tenney, yeah. Yep.
And it's a Bat Out of Hell cover, but it's the Boys Out of Hell, is what it's called. Yep. Obviously, referencing Bat Out of Hell by Meatloaf. And you have to love Meatloaf. Meatloaf is amazing in so many ways. And I love him in Rocky Horror. That's like my favorite go-to movie. So what was that like? Because obviously a lot of people know Bat Out of Hell and that entire cover. And I think we can say the album because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
For me, Thomas represents a higher caliber of creator that is actually of known creators, I think, in my opinion, that is always out there trying to spread. What?
I would say the highest caliber.
There you go.
So having him on our book is ridiculous.
And it speaks not only for his art and his ability that way, but also for the culture that he continues to cultivate and nurture. He speaks out against people that bash each other. He speaks out against people that are trying to slam one side or the other of comics and stuff like that, and says, you know what, this is not that competition. This is you needing to step up your game. You know, dedicate yourself to the purpose, take the drive, share the stories, build yourself. And, you know, early on when I was working on stuff, I know I tried out to ink some of his stuff, but he came back with some really, really good pointers. So he took me seriously even as an inker, even then. And I'm sure that I'm not the only one he's done that for. And he's always, always, always sharing and helping guide people. And that was really inspirational early on for me.
Well, and he's been a Marvel superstar. He's done work for DC and Image and all, like in the 90s and stuff, like just huge. And then he went on and and so the thing about Belial that a lot of people might not know is it's also very heavy metal inspired. I'm a big fan of heavy metal. We both love metal a lot.
Belial's
and
shirt,
so like if you look at Belial's shirt, it says, if you're 555, then I'm 666, which is a Slipknot quote. And it's a perfect quote for the devil to have. So we wanted to have some metal infused into it, and he brings that. He did fucking covers for AC/DC. Their new album that's coming out, that's his work. And so to have, to be able to talk to my father, who got me into AC/DC at the age of, like, I don't even remember. Like, I've always just listened to AC/DC. To be able to talk to him and just be like, yeah, by the way, I have the same cover artist as AC/DC. And he's like, whoa, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, holy shit. Even I'm saying holy shit.
Yeah.
And so what is that like? Because that adds credibility in a lot of ways. And I think credibility, and we spoke about personal verification, but one of the things that I'm going through on my podcast right now is I am getting verification from certain companies and certain artists. And obviously this week and even last week and the week before has been that. Whether the views are there or not is not up for it. But obviously I can hang with certain people at this point. And so, what is that like, knowing that your comic is getting this caliber of an artist and that it adds credibility to it? And now, I mean, and I'm going to say it the only way I know how to say it, but it makes people who recognize that name or Google that name to say, oh shit, this is now a player type thing.
Yeah. I want to say that for myself, it represents that we're making the right kind of moves. If we weren't doing things or we weren't presenting ourselves, it's not even just about the title, but about how we represent ourselves and the community. If we didn't do that in a way that was in line with some of these people that are involved, they wouldn't allow themselves to be involved with what we're doing. And so to sit there and say that somebody with as high ranks as like Thomas Tenney, to come and when we offer, say, hey, look, would you be interested in doing this with us? And for him to say, you know what, absolutely, you know, that speaks a lot, because it's not just even one creator, it's both of us. And so knowing that we're coming across with that and it's in line with what they want and it's exciting for them, and it's not just about having them on board, but having them also excited for what we're doing. And that to me is a big boost for my damaged ego, my anxiety ridden depression issues. But at the end of the day, you know, when we get this, it's going to be something that even I'm going to get a copy and I'm going to put it up on my wall. You know what I mean? That might be something I send out to be graded, because that represents such a high stepping stone. And at this point, once we get that, you know, who knows who else we might get in contact with. You know what I mean?
I was thinking that Shaun, you and I haven't talked about this yet, but I think the other part of that is now you get to see these cool names and these amazing images, but then as you start to see the flow and the rise of all of that, there's also this feeling of potential. Like, if this is what we're doing in issue 2, what the fuck are we doing in issue 3? Like,
Yeah.
what are those covers going to look like? And I mean, we're not prepared for that, and we'll get there when it's time to get there. But there is that nagging feeling in the back of your head that goes, dude, if we're already doing this, like, where are we at next time? Who we playing with? What do we want to do? And I mean, again, the script's not even ready for 3. We're not there, but it's there. The thought is there. Where's that going to go? And so, yeah, it's all very, yeah, it feels very good. It's a very interesting sensation to go, okay, I'm feeling the groove. I'm feeling the wave, and I want to go with this and see where this takes us.
And I think it also adds value to our skill sets as well. Because if people see that we're being able to be associated, not just that we comment on a random post that they post or anything else like that, but to carry a title that has a name like that attached to it, and people are like, oh, you know that person? Oh, you worked with that person? Oh, they did that for you? They automatically bring you closer to that association level. And you keep doing that and leveling up enough like that, pretty soon you're going to find yourself, you know, possibly on the same level. And hopefully you'll be able to inspire those people, and somebody will be bragging about you on a podcast sometime.
I know the feeling because it's coming for me a lot sooner than I.
Good.
And probably the last month has been that trajectory in a lot
See,
of.
that's dope.
Yeah, way to go, man.
It's starting, and it's scary. It's scary but exciting, and I'm stoked for it. And there's a particular company that I'm definitely aligned with now more so than others,
Nice.
and that's
Well,
Zenoscope.
keep us in the loop, homie.
It's
So,
Zenoscope, and it's a big deal. But that it's not about me. It's not about me. I want to talk about the cover that I'm going to be buying in the next day or two from you guys,
yeah.
and that's the Link Gets Sexy cover by Chris
Yeah.
Matt. And I'm not too sure about this cover. If and it's very provocative. I think Shaun just put it up. I think that's the one, right?
Yep, that's it.
That's it.
And so, how did this one come about? Because this is the other sexy cover in the set. Because there's obviously the Hooters cover, which is the beer pong cover, and then there's this one. So
This is where we admit to shaming ourselves a little bit. is that we had conversations. One of the biggest pills to swallow was when we agreed that big sigh that you saw from Chuck earlier about having Steph on our book is because we know that there's a difference between a regular comic book and the indie stuff, and then there's your cheesecake or your beefcake books, your titty books, your sex books. Those themes sell, and it's hard as an indie community, as an indie art, as an indie creator, to watch sometimes those type of books do tens of thousands of dollars when we're struggling to make a regular type of story, and we're pulling in and sacrificing what we can to pull those in. And so when we agreed to do that one with Steph, it led us to say internally, how are we going to rectify that within ourselves? And Chuck actually started come up with, we were spitballing one day, and Chuck started throwing out his ideas as one does.
Yep. Yeah. To me, it was kind of like a fuck you to the sexy comics, the sexy covers. So it's the idea that we've got this sexiness. We've got Chemosh, which is our fallen angel, and then we've got this other really sexy demon there. And then Link decides, "Fuck you guys! You're gonna keep me off a cover?" And he photoshops his face on top. And we just thought that was a hilarious idea to have Link's smiling little dick mug on top of this gorgeous hot demoness. And so we just got so excited, and we just thought that was such a fun. And what that one does is that actually really rips into the a lot of the central feelings of the book. It's tongue-in-cheek humor. It's kind of a fuck you to society. It's I do things my own way. It's funny. It's cute. It's sexy. It's evil. Like it's all of those things. It has all of those layers, and still Chris Mad fucking brought it. It's beautiful. My wife said to me, she goes, I want that as a poster. And I was like, well, we can make that happen. She's like, yeah, I know. I want it as a poster. Like,
I don't
she's
think
telling me it's
I
going
don't
to
think
be a poster. And I'm like, okay.
should go the poster out. Go an art canvas 2x3 wood.
Right.
That's the way you do.
One of the things is when we got that design back, and he had laid all that out, we were actually kind of panicking a little bit because we were like, where are we going to put our logo? What are we going to do? We don't want to mess this up. There's no way we can do that. And so we're like, well, Chuck's all, well, why don't we just leave it the Virgin cover and just leave it at that? I mean, there's no reason not to.
Well, and involved. Having a Hell book with a Virgin cover is just hilarious in my mind.
It is true.
Like the whole idea, like, dude, you've got a Hell book that's Virgin? Okay, that's great. Let's do it.
The only thing that's Virgin about this book
is that cover.
Yeah.
That should be put on the back. It should be a white back and put that up right there.
Right.
But even to go further, so we obviously have this Good Girl cheesecake art with one of your books, and then we have this fuck you playing around playful element to it. And we all know, I mean, I'm the first person to say Zenscope does probably hundreds, if not millions of dollars with their Good Girl art books. You know, Zenscope just today had a virtual sale earlier today, and they were selling Z-rated books, which is topless covers, for $100 a pop. And they print 100 of them, and they all sell. I mean, we could all do the math here, and then they have like 6 or 7 of them, and people just spend money like that. So we know companies make a lot of money with that stuff. So, and I think I know the business well enough that those books can keep a really good book afloat and can prosper by definition. And then you could get to do a cool cover as well. And so, what is that dilemma like for you, and being in the business and knowing that it does operate that way? And we're starting to see a lot more of that. And it's a sensitive issue because it's tricky when you have to go and maybe you don't want to go and do a Good Girl art book, but how the fuck are you supposed to get something published fast and make sure it reaches its goal?
I think everyone needs to know what lane they're in and kind of what your book is. My other book, you reviewed it, Welcome to the Void. I don't think that book will ever have a sexy cover. And it doesn't speak to the story of that book. And so that book might not ever make the money or do that, but it's a story I still have to tell.
We
It's
spoke
important
about
to me
this. So
tell that.
this is more the editor hat, right? Meaning
Yeah.
you have to know if you have a PG book, you can't have a sexy cover.
Yeah, it kind of
So
goes against it.
where you have to know where you want to be later on. And I think without diving too much into it, I think that you can do both, but you might need, like, say, an alternate pen name or an alternate creator name or something like that, because ultimately what you create is what you'll be associated with. And with a book like, say, Belial, this is something that we're pretty comfortable in saying that it can and it has the potential to be really big. So we know that we were against, when I say we're against those covers, one of the things is we were against one of those covers for us. And so knowing that we kind of play in that arena, does it stick not necessarily with who we are, but within the theme of the book? Can we justify that? And is it something that we will be wanting to be associated with later on down the road? We have the option to have topless covers and stuff like that, and they're fun, but I don't think that they speak to the story too much. Now, if you open the book and you see a couple of titties, which we won't lie,
Mm-hmm.
but if it fits the theme, the way that it's done, and it's the way that you choose that lane that you're in and that association that you want to go with down the line. And we're both of the understanding that we're not those creators. We're not going to be making cheesecake books. That's not where our heart lies. And for some people, that's their passion. Their passion is to take that lane, and for them, that's them. That's
Yeah.
fully commendable.
I would also say that I think I could work on a cheesecake book. I would be open to it. I just think that this isn't that book.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
This isn't that story for us.
I mean,
But like, could I do a Zenoscope's Robin Hood or anything?
it's
Yes,
the
that's
craziest
great.
thing
Totally.
about Zenoscope is their books aren't cheesecake. It's just their covers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their books are clean. They're adult oriented. I'll explain. Robin Hood in the first 5 issues gets raped and gets sexually assaulted. That's not a lighthearted topic, but there's no nudity. It's not like all cheesecake. The entire book is written as very much an adult 16 or up type of book, but they put a topless cover on it because they could sell it for $100 versus $4 or $20. And if your audience wants it, and 100 people want that, you just made. I think that's 10,000, right?
Well, I mean, you nailed it. It's what do the people want? You know, you create that urge and that, like we were talking about earlier, that collectability. Some of the pretty badass people we know, like Jim Noble, he's got what, 7 covers by Steph Wilson on his next project, I think. So
Yeah. The guy's got his last Kickstarter had 70 covers.
collectability, know your market, know who you're talking to, know your material, and that's a prime example of somebody that knows his material, knows his audience, markets it thusly, and is able to profit and prosper and continue to produce that level of stuff.
Well, I'm just
So
gonna say on behalf of every person who's rational on the fucking planet, holy fucking shit, that's a lot. Like that's all I'm gonna say.
Oh, you're not going to see me trying to juggle that anytime fucking soon. Absolutely.
cover 22A and 22Z. Yeah,
I'll
not gonna
pass.
happen.
I'll pass on that one.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And if you know the pricing for cover artists and stuff like that, that's a lot of initial investment as well. So he's taking a risk. There's a risk that's associated with a lot of that. So is your own personal gain and your own personal prosperity and ability to continue in whatever property or whatever you're working on, is that worth the risk that you put forward and putting on that? And I know we probably weren't at that level when we started putting this book together. We weren't at that comfort level.
Well,
And,
definitely not financially.
That's what I'm saying.
it's a lot of money. I could imagine, and I have a number in my head, and I'm pretty sure I'm off by a huge amount on that. I'm pretty sure of that. So it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money to lay out.
I mean, comics in general aren't cheap to make. Even if you find somebody that's really generous and really excited about your stuff, there's an investment there. And oftentimes, that's why platforms like Kickstarter and stuff are so important. Without that, some of us would have never really been able to get into the game. So, speaks
And,
a lot.
and now to talk about Kickstarter, because crowdfunding has become very interesting, and I'm more interested in Chuck's opinion on this. And so I take the position that I think Kickstarter is for everybody, big, small, in between. And I also realize that crowdfunding is not just comics. And I think that's something that people forget as well. You know, there's a variety of tools. There are books that are not comic oriented that are funded on Kickstarter. My dad just backed a photography book on Kickstarter. But obviously, people like Scott Snyder and Keanu Reeves and Jeff Lemire, and I backed the Curse Words book because I like that story and I thought it's exciting and I'm stoked for it. So, how do you two feel about where Kickstarter and Indiegogo and just crowdfunding as a whole is going? Because it is sensitive, and I've been on a show, I think Rob Anderson's show, and I said this opinion. So my opinion is that I think it's for everybody, but I do realize there are issues with it, and that it is a bit of a double-edged sword in my opinion. And we, as a community, both backers and creators have to be aware that there are consequences for this next stage.
I'll let Chad have the spotlight on this one, but just because mine's going to be really quick, and I want to give him more time to talk. For me, I think knowing that the creator's intentions are really important when knowing how that stuff's going to go. I think personally having those bigger Keanu Reeves and stuff involved bring a new line of sight to things and the possibility to considering not the big two, producers of comics and stuff, and shedding that opportunity
Big three now.
other avenues, and allows people, once if the world opens back up for conventions and stuff, people will be more apt to consider those side titles, and they'll be more interested or more open to taking new avenues into experiencing new stories rather than the 17th timeline of Batman. So, Chuck?
I would say it's all about validity. So the fact of the matter is that if you consider Kickstarter or Indiegogo, any of those, as a publisher, because it does technically publish comics, that makes them one of the biggest publishers of comics in the fucking world. That's huge. Also, when you have guys like my wife has, if you look up here, we have Frank Cho, we have Witchblade, we have what was the other one you got? Michael Turner. Like just some amazing, and then of course all the names that you mentioned as well. Um, these people have seen what us indies were doing there and went, whoa, what the fuck are these guys doing? Holy shit, there's some money in there. And that's because we've been in there and we're the ones who went in there, carved this space out, and really pushed. And so I know that there's a lot of people who are like, screw these guys, they're taking us money. I'm like, no, they're bringing more money in there. They're bringing more backers in there. If you're afraid of these big guys coming in, first off, I'm not competing with fucking Keanu Reeves. Are you fucking kidding me? But here's what I'll tell you. I was watching, when it comes to Kickstarter, one of the greatest guys for an indie to watch is Tyler James Vogel. He has his own show. It's called Comics Launch. He's absolutely amazing. And he was talking about Berserker and Keanu's thing. And the way he personally got through to me as I was watching that video, because he said, here's what I want you to do. Look at that. All right. So we funded it. We go all the way down to the bottom of his page. And at the bottom of the page is lines of indie comics. And the funny thing is that Shaun and I, one of our best friends in comics, Kyron Silva, his Saw the Lightning Wielder was right fucking there underneath Keanu's. And I'm like, dude, that's Shaun of Light directly on our dude, Kyron. That's huge. Kyron is right there with the rest of us. Yeah. If we had books there, there's a good chance Belial could have been right underneath a Keanu Reeves book.
It's
that
called
is nuts.
It's called a funnel.
Yeah.
So Keanu Reeves is the top of the funnel. And what winds up happening, this is just marketing 101, is that naturally, if Keanu Reeves is 100%, that's going to diminish. But if you get even zero point 0.5 of that, that's a huge amount of people looking at your project. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to make you another argument that's more mainstream that also might convince you that I don't know if Tyler spoke about, because Tyler was on my show a while back. But my argument for this is that, and we spoke about it with sort of Good Girl Art and Cheesecake Art, is that Boom is not a big company. They are not. They have some money, but they are not a Marvel, a DC. But they produce some interesting books. And so one of the things is, because Boom is behind this book and a lot of money's coming in, now some of that money's going to trickle into other projects at Boom and keep certain books alive. And so now Boom all of a sudden has a huge fucking amount of money, and there might be a book like, I can't think of a book off the top of my head that Boom does, but all of a sudden that book might now be able to make it to another 4 issues, and then in issue 3 of those 4 issues it becomes financially stable, which means that series is alive, which means artists and writers are eating. And so that's something that people don't understand, is that when Death of Superman, just to take a little detour, when that came out, and I was going back and printing and printing and printing, and the prints were never stopping, and the press was never stopping with it, and it sold copy after copy after copy, that kept a lot of other books that were not doing so good alive and kept people employed and writers eating. And it doesn't matter at this point if you're indie or mainstream. And so if you're very much against that, you then have to be against a writer getting a gig or having a gig, and you have to openly say it. And look, you could have doubts, and you could say, hey, I want to make sure this person is doing it for the right reasons. That's a perfectly reasonable question. But also understand that Boom just raised almost $1 million on this book. I would imagine the team behind Berserker is going to do well, and obviously I'm hoping a lot of that money goes to printing and those rewards. But what if 70,000 or 80,000 of that goes into another book, and now a writer and artist now have another 6 months on a book because of that? It's a big fucking
See,
deal.
so what you're saying right now, it tells me that you guys didn't hear the big news about what Boom did today.
I've been a little busy.
No, it's not. It's definitely not a knock on you, homie, either of you. So Boom made an announcement today, and what they did is they went on Kickstarter to comics that are on right now, and they dropped $100 into a bunch of the comics that are on Kickstarter today. And we even had some of our friends go, "Holy shit! I just got a massive jump from Boom," and I think they were dropping like $100 into these different campaigns and stuff. And so that was Boom going, hey man, we appreciate what you guys did, and we know we kind of crowded the pool a little bit. What can we do to help out? And that's amazing. Now, did Belial see any of that money? No, but it doesn't mean I'm going to bitch. They gave back to the community, and just because I didn't see a penny of that doesn't mean that I get to bitch. In fact, I have to tip my hat to Boom and just say, man, that was a really cool move. I respect it. That was just an amazing thing for you to do. And so mad props to you guys. I really appreciate what you guys did, and keep up the good work. You keep acting like that, you can come swim in my fucking pool anytime. Piss in it. I don't give a shit.
They basically acted as a company the way we do as people anytime that we decide we want to go in and contribute to somebody else's Kickstarter. I mean, I got a friend who told me the other day, Kyron, actually, I'm going to tell you, we are like his 200th book he's backed. That's a big deal. Okay. Number. Some of those might be $1, some of them might be $20, some of them, but the number of projects that he has backed, and he's put out what 3-4 books of his own or something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. But he's supported publicly on this platform over like 200 books. That's a big deal. And this company, even just dropping themselves after one big title comes in and they drop the same way we do, but their pockets just happen to be deeper. But they're acting a very respectable, honorable, in a way that really translates to a company that has an integrity level that maybe some of these other companies may not do. And so that's a very and big head nod from me to them as well.
Well, their board is made up of a very, very good person that I know on a personal level.
So
Well, tell them we said thank you.
Yeah, I will. I'm sure he had a play in it. It's Paul Levitz.
Mad respect.
I'm pretty sure he because he's that type of guy. I just know him well enough.
They pay attention. They pay attention. They know that they were making waves. They know that indie creators were talking about it. They have people that scope it out. They've got
And
creators
now
out there in the groups.
and now more indie creators are talking about it. It's a win across the board. Where
Yeah.
by them giving back, they've generated more money. There's a whole concept that it's called Giver's Game, and they just played the game better than anybody else has ever played it before. In this,
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
and rightfully so. And they didn't do anything wrong. They helped out probably a lot of people. I guarantee you, there are people who were on the brink, and that boom funded their project.
Yeah, like for me, I don't think I've ever bought a Boom book, but now they're on my like I would look into it. Certainly, if someone was like, "Oh, dude, I got this book by Boom," and I'm like, "Hey, let's see it. What's up?" Like right away, I'd take a look at it and I'd give them some love because they certainly. And again, I didn't see a penny of it, but it's a respectable move. So yeah, like I appreciate what you're doing. Let's see what you got.
And now we're going to table that, and I do want to talk about COVID briefly. And Chuck, like this is my second favorite topic to talk about now. Kickstarter is like the top one with this Keanu Reeves, and I've come around on that position. So my position on Keanu Reeves has changed, and obviously COVID sucks. I don't think anybody will disagree for a lot of reasons, but clearly cons are fucked up. New York Comic Con was supposed to happen this weekend. Thank God it fucking didn't happen. That would have been a nightmare. I think that that's a hands down position. And in the wrestling world, there was 12 wrestling shows in, I believe, Indiana as part of the collective, and now a bunch of wrestling shows are being canceled because somebody had COVID and it's run through, and now it's putting a lot of people at a safety risk in other states. So clearly, and that's a much smaller environment where they were talking about 150 people and maybe 50 wrestlers. So that should give people an idea why New York Comic Con had to be canceled. Because 150,000 people is a lot more than 200. And,
Yeah,
and
certainly.
200 get that problem. In a safe environment, I can't imagine what it would be like in a non-safe environment. So I want to express that right off the bat. But more importantly, I am curious where you think cons are going, what's going to happen. I know that you spoke about this with me before, and I don't know, given that when did we even fucking speak last?
It's been a while. It's been months.
So obviously, I don't think your position has changed as far as.
I don't remember my position.
I think your position was that like if shows open up, I have to go as an indie creator and I have to sell my book and things like that. And I think that's a fair point. That was one of this wrestler's promoter's position, saying, hey, if I could run a show, I'm going to put safety precautions in, but I want to give wrestlers the ability to make money. If you got a 15-minute match and you're making $1,200, it's people got to eat too. So I don't know where you see all this going, because shit, in my opinion, is about to get a fuckload worse, and also things are about to change just in general, where we're at the end of an era and we're about to begin a new one.
So you've posed. Go ahead, Chuck.
No, you go.
I was gonna say, I think for us as comic creators and stuff, you've basically put us creators in a position to say, oh, you're a bunch of creative people. This obstacle is in front of you and has created the opportunity for us to find creative solutions to those problems. I know that once the world opens up, that I'll be visiting conventions, whether I have a mask on or not too. But in the meantime, you have some people that have learned to adapt and create their own venues of online conventions and stuff. And so they've created a new avenue of experiences for people. And so we have some good friends that actually just went through having a convention, more or less, on Kickstarter, I believe, right? I think
Yeah.
they're wrapping up.
Yeah,
And
Tom Hutchinson, CB Zane, and Wendy Shearer.
yeah. And so they've put together even packages that resemble some of the stuff that you would get at a convention. Those swag bags that you would get, like your lanyards and your different things like that.
Keith Garvey was involved in that. Elias Childress was involved in that.
Yeah. So that you're just seeing the evidence that you can't stop the creative mindset, and we are going to find ways around, which is, I think, another reason why, like we were saying, like the big companies are actually starting to take a look at what we're doing, because the passion bleeds through. For people that are truly passionate about what they're doing, will find a way to do it. And so this is just us taking advantage of those avenues.
Yeah, and you know what? But also people are going to go, how are we going to do this right? So this month there was a show that happened in northern Texas, and I was seriously considering going. First off, again, I've got a fuckload of books here. It would be really helpful to be able to sell some of them and hopefully make some money and maybe get some more people to look at the Kickstarter and stuff. Like, it could have been really helpful. But then I looked at it and I went, it's not a major city. Um, they what they ended up doing, and these are things that I feel like convention. I understand you've got your own monetary issues and your own overhead to deal with, but you do need to consider the people who are going to then work with you. And so for me, going out there was going to be a trip. I was going to need a hotel. I was going to have to pay for all this stuff, and I was going to have to pay for the table. And that's where my problem came in. They said, we're going to open it up, but we're only going to do 50% capacity. And so we're going to do 50% capacity, but then we're not going to, they didn't change any of the prices at all. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to pay the
Oh,
same
I'm
price for
going
my
to
table.
outline this. I'm going to take a shot at this because this is like my
Yeah,
favorite topic. I love this topic.
go to town.
Economics to me is like a language. I can't speak anything except this language. So here's what they were basically doing. For everybody who understands, what was happening is that they cut pretty much the entire vendors and artist alley in half. Then that means that there's now less artists, and also probably they were also cutting attendance most likely to some degree as well.
Absolutely.
So now here's what happens. Now there's less choice, which is good with attendance. That makes complete sense because that means that that ratio is staying the same. But at the same time, the problem with that is that if you cut half the artists out, you actually need to have a greater amount of people because now that's how you solve that problem. If the ratio stays the same, but you have to still pay your same table price, and that doesn't get cut. If everything gets cut in half, then everything is still staying stagnant. That doesn't mean it's going to be profitable. But if you keep the same attendance and have the table cut in half and have half the artists, that solves the problem because now there's less choice. You're paying less, which means your bar to profitability or breaking even is less, and therefore you can actually maybe make $100. And if your goal is to get press or view or get your book out there or just unload a bunch of books so that you can get new inventory in, that solves that problem. That is the exact thing they were not doing. They were
So,
basically pretty much,
except
yeah.
they did it differently because they didn't drop the number of tables. They only dropped the number of people that could be in the building. So it still had the same layout, still had the same number of tables, but we have 50% less people who are going to come in there. So what you're telling me is I have the same number of competition. I'm paying the same price for a table, but you're going to give me half the customers and I got to fight it with all these motherfuckers too? Are you kidding me right now? And I have to pay for my gas and my food and my
And
hotel.
and you forgot one other key component. Right now, money is tight in America,
Mhm.
Yeah.
without a doubt. And also the mindset as the spender. In the last 6 months, there's been more money that has been saved in any time comparable than in the last 5 years in America. And so, I think back in April, I think $2.4 trillion was saved by Americans. This is an indicator that people are expecting this to get a lot worse, and people are scared. Where people are now hoarding money, they're now making a priority. And so I hate to say this, but you don't need a comic book to live. You need milk. You need bread to live. But you'd be surprised. Milk reductions in supermarkets has now changed. People are choosing to say, well, I'm going to be getting a carton of milk every other week and not every week. That this is something that there was a milk shortage. There was a milk surplus in America in March and April of this year for the first time in 20 years, meaning that legitly cows were being milked and that milk was being dumped or straight out because that's how messed up things are. So that's the other component of this, of cons, is that the money when this shit opens back up isn't going to be there in many ways. That's my view on it.
Yeah.
And I see it because I run an eBay business and I have expensive comics. And 6 months ago, that shit was flying off like crazy. And now nobody's fucking touching it, and people are lowballing me left and right.
Yep, I believe it, man.
And what I mean
People
by
are starting to
lowballing,
haggle, that's for sure.
and what I mean by lowballing is I put up an $80 comic, people are lowballing me at $30.
Yeah.
So that's where I see things going, and so
Yeah.
I see that there's a whole new territory where the interest is unbelievably high, and I think indie comics for the first time have reached more mainstream and more attention than the big guys for a variety of reasons, and Travis Gibb basically explained this to me, where this is the first time indie comics probably in the last 30 years have gotten a jump on the main guys, which is great.
Yeah.
Because the main guys were delayed by 2.5 months. And then also on top of that, they were then all there. So from a production standpoint, nothing came out. And then story wise, everything got pushed off.
Yep.
And so, I mean, and I think a bunch of indie people are going to come out of this. And then I'm curious how you feel about that because your hand is in every single pie. And then maybe something else.
Whore.
I won't even say no.
So where do you think it even goes further beyond this entire mess? Once everything is sorted out and everything is straightened out, do you think that mainstream is going to come back the same way? Or do you think that indie is going to gain market share? Or do you think they already have?
I think they already have. I definitely think they already have, especially if you're willing to include Kickstarter. If you do, we've absolutely gained market share. But we've already seen changes. Diamond isn't the same. DC's not using them. There's all these different. You've got all these different people. Now you've got guys like Scout who are also using Simon and Schuster and stuff. I mean, all these people are making these major moves and attaching to different studios and doing other things. Dude, right now is the fall of Rome. And so we're seeing a massive change and schism and shift.
Welcome to the
And
Wild West,
so,
right?
pardon?
Welcome to the Wild West.
Kind of, yeah. What I would say is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I would say, things are going to change again, and they're going to change for a while. And so, what you got to do, you got to be ready to pivot, man. What are we going to do? How are we going to change things? And I mean, Shaun and I, that's exactly what we did. We were like, you know what? We don't normally enjoy this, but let's do some variants. Let's do these. Let's add these things. And then we also did things like we also pared things down. So we were like, we don't have the money to bring you, little weird magnets and trinkets and stuff like that. So let's focus on the things that we know people are excited about, we know people love, and that will get people in. And so that we were minimizing the ways that we were coming at the market, but we were maximizing the things that we thought were going to hit the best.
I know the feeling of that too. I know the
Yeah.
exact feeling of that because in my business that's exactly what I'm doing.
Oh.
I know exactly how that feels, and I think a lot of indie people do. And I think it's a good lesson that if you're running a Kickstarter, you have to really think. And correct me if I'm wrong. You have to say what is going to sell and what is going to hit, and what is going to go get this Kickstarter across the finish line, make my customers happy at the cheapest rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're basically like, I don't know, what would be a good way to put it? We're basically like Muhammad Ali. We're playing the long game. We're taking a beating right now, and we're having to choose the punches that we actually dish out, all the while trying to still be entertaining and relevant. But we're still hoping to come out and strategize for that to come out on top in the end.
But I would say that, Shaun, that was always our plan. Even Shaun and I, as creators, Shaun and I have gone out, we've branched out, we sacrificed our own comics to work on other people's, to get our names out there so that our names matter on comics. Shaun went out there and he worked with companies like Caliber and stuff like that, so that when he went on there, he'd go, yeah, I'm a Caliber creator. Now, at the year end, I get to say I've worked for Marcosia, I've worked for Antarctic, I've worked for Scout. Like, we get to add these kind of, I've called them badges, but we get to add these things to our names so people can go, oh, you guys have done some shit. Yeah, we sacrificed working on our own stuff and worrying about our own stuff so that we could add validity to what we're doing. So Shaun and I have always been willing to take a punch right in the fucking face so that we can keep moving forward and keep trying to pivot and find a way to create validity in what we do and in the market that we're in. So this is just another way. It's like, oh, okay, now you're going to create a pandemic. All right, man, we'll take that punch in the fucking face too. Let's keep going. Let's find out how we get around this.
Yeah, we've chosen different avenues. Chuck has taken a very vocal and visual approach to even supporting other people and working with other people and imparting his knowledge with some of the more direct messages that he's come across with comics and stuff like that. And I myself have become kind of like a backstage kind of person and running the Indie Comic Conspiracy page, since starting that page together and different things like that, giving people those avenues.
I was hoping you were going to say back door, but okay, backstage.
I know your hand was twitching for that reach around.
and so now I'm very curious because obviously you're a team here and people can get down in the dumps. So I'm curious, Chuck, how do you inspire Shaun when he's down, and Shaun, how do you inspire Chuck?
You know what? I'm actually not going to answer that. I'm going to do this in a different way. I think here's how we should do this, Shaun. I'm going to tell you how Shaun inspires me, and that way, because I think it's less egotistical. So Shaun is really good to me because he'll do things like he'll tell me, he'll be like, oh, dude, man, I know you're having a really rough time right now, but we gotta get this shit going on. He's very kind of calm and smooth with me. He knows when I need him to chill the fuck out and just kind of talk me through it and whatnot. He also, I would say, what Shaun does for me is he'll such a dick. He will throw me these random videos, pictures, images, his meme game. Basically, the memes that are too bad for him to show on fucking Facebook will end up in my inbox somehow. And he's just like, hey, man, have you been having a rough go? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, here's a vagina flapping in the wind. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Holy crap, I'm at work. And he's like, yeah, I know you are. And so, he'll find ways to make me feel better and do that kind of stuff. And yeah, he's just a good dude, and he'll talk me up. So he's just super supportive. And so that's how Shaun takes care of me.
And I'm sure you take care of Shaun, Chuck, in many ways with your
I do what I can.
with your very supportive text messages.
Oh yeah, no, he
So
takes a very shirts off, hands on approach to things
So,
sometimes.
so for those who don't know, I'm going to tell a story that's really funny. So I am recording on Skype, and I named this group X-rated group or something like that.
It is naked photos.
What X-rated photos, right?
That's right.
And so I send the link to Shaun, and then Chuck gets into the group, and then basically Shaun, I think you looked at it and said, I probably shouldn't go into this group.
I did. I was in for like 2 seconds. I was like, "What's going on?" I look up at the corner. It says X-rated photos. I was all out, out, out. Not yet. We're not doing that kind of show. Hold on. And then Chuck's like, "Well, are you gonna get on?" I'm like, "Dude, it said X-rated photos. What? I don't even know." He's like, "Now we're definitely going in." So
Well, we had a show. So I mean, Shaun and I have a way of kind of building on each other and really kind of fucking with each other. And so the other day, I don't remember what it was. Okay, I vaguely remember it. We were on Russell Allen's show. It was the 11th. So it was 2 days before our show. We're chatting, we're talking, and we're having a perfectly good time. But of course, it's Belial aspect. So we're swearing, we're having a good old time. We're being crude and rude. And one of the girls is like, "Well, if you want people to buy your comic, you might have to be willing to show some skin, guys." I'm not. I don't have a lot of shame. So I was like, "Okay, cool." And I fucking took my shirt off right there, and I threw it on the bed. And Shaun was like, "Okay," and Shaun did the same thing, like pretty much right away. And Russell is standing there talking to these two guys from Belial with no shirts, and he's like, "Fuck it."
That's not
Russell, even the
happening.
host, takes his shirt off, and so somebody comes in and they're like, "What the fuck is going on?" We're like, "We're trying to have an interview. Just let us talk here. You can ask questions in the audience, but come on, we're in the middle of something here. We're having a moment."
we did that in the middle of the most like level-headed part of anything that he had to say for the entire show too. Like we were trying to shine some light back on him, and then yeah, we pulled a Belial link on him. So
And it kept on going. We still had a good old time. It was still like serious and irreverent all at once, which is kind of what our book is. So yeah, man, we just we just have a blast. And when it's time to do something stupid and fun, like take shots of hot sauce or take off your shirt, we fucking do it because we just want to entertain you guys. We want to have some fun with you guys. That's what the book's about. That's what we're about.
And the reason how I found this out was that apparently it got onto Facebook, this entire comment, and then I started commenting on it, and then I said, "Oh yeah, that's the first question, everybody." Like that's how this all came about. So on that note, I do want to give both of you an opportunity to promote the Kickstarter and where can people find everything. And the Kickstarter is at $2,277 as of right this second. So everybody go support it.
Thank you so much. Shaun, go ahead, man.
all right, mine's short and sweet. You'll find me as Shaun Barbour online. If you find one of these guys, you'll find me on their friends list. Go ahead and stalk them like you guys know you do anyway. Other than that, you'll see some of the stuff that I have to contribute even in the off Belial season by going to the Belial page at facebook.com/Belial comic. Other than that, I also have an Instagram. If you look up Instinct, INST or INKST something, I'll spell it out in the comments or something. Yeah, what INSTINK3D. Sorry,
Yeah.
not very visual. Good a thing. But yeah, that's where you'll find me. So I apologize for the verbal hiccup, but there you go.
Okay, so for me, you'll find me on Facebook. You'll find me on Twitter at Chucky Pin. You'll find Chuck Pino on Instagram. I also do indie comic reviews, so you can find my reviews on YouTube, Chuck's Raw Reviews. I have a couple more Kickstarters, and I'll just mention them really quick, happening up real soon. I have an audio drama. It's called Essence House, and it's a sci-fi family drama, time travel thing. I would love for you guys to go check that out. We're turning it into a novel as of November 1st, so keep your eyes peeled for Essence House. I also have an anthology that I'm a part of that's coming out very soon on the 27th of this month. It's called Cthulhu Invades Oz. Dude, listen for that. There's so many great, talented people who are a part of that, and somehow my fat ass ended up in there, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, man, in the meantime, Belial, Belial, Belial. We're all about that. We're all about having a good time. So if at any point you guys are in the midst of your doldrums and you're having a rough time, feel free to hit Shaun and I up. Even if it's not about pushing the book, we would gladly just offer advice, have some fun, because that's what it's all about right now.
And on that note, I think that's a wrap. But before we go, I am going to remind everybody that, hey, indie comics do need support. Obviously, both these guys need support. Belial needs support. Get that Kickstarter fucking funded, everybody. Seriously. It's a great book. It's a fun book. Those variants are dope as fuck. I'm spending my last $15 that I have in October on this freaking Kickstarter. So that's where I'm at right now. So definitely go check that. And so that's one. But in reality, and I get that times are tough. One of the things is that if you're protecting your family, making sure you're good, or money's tight in your life, please don't go and spend money you don't have, because that's not what I want, and I don't think that's what anybody wants. And I think people are very understanding at this point in society. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't support on social media. There's a variety of ways that you can support on social media. And if you're sharing things or posting or liking, it means so much, not just personally, but also for the algorithms. And also, if you have a bunch of people and you're in a Facebook group and you share somebody's Kickstarter, you don't know who's going to see that and who's going to contribute. And that can make a massive difference. And so I definitely recommend that you engage and support. And social media is free. And at this point, I have no excuses. Nobody has any excuses for not following and supporting people on social media, because it is absolutely free. They drop their links, and even checking out their Kickstarters is also super important at the same time. If you go on Kickstarter and type in Chuck Pineau, it'll appear, and a bunch of stuff will appear up. So that's the other thing I want to mention too. So definitely look at that. And on that note, everybody, thank you for watching. And I'm going to remind you, as I always do, have an American night, everybody. Just have an American night. Don't just have a good night. Have an American night.